Hello, David. How are you doing today?
Hey, very good.
Great stuff. David, do you have a favorite quote, something that motivates you, inspires you, you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I would say an inspiring quote is
Mm.
competition is healthy and domination is immunity.
Mm. Competition is healthy, domination is immunity. Very deep. Where did you got this from? Did you coined it or?
Man, I can't remember where it was found, but we heard it somewhere along the way, me and the team, and just kind of clung to it.
Mm.
It's more of a helpful saying, a motivating saying to us because, as we're kind of innovating and opening new pathways with technology. Others almost, we're kind of coming into the race as well. And to not get discouraged, it's, we're happy to have competition. We just had to figure out how to dominate. Um,
Indeed,
so,
indeed, indeed.
yeah.
Great. So David, talk to us more about Gopher then. What does the product do? Who is it for? And what's the main problem you're helping to solve?
So, Gopher is, you could think of it like the Uber or Grubhub of delivery.
Hmm.
We deliver anything from paper clips to rocket ships. As simple as typing in a to and from address what the item or items are, and you get an instant quote. If you like it, it hits the driver app, and the driver sees it and accepts the order, and you can track the driver to the pickup and to the drop off. And then it's also held accountable by a digital bill of lading, and all parties have their digital signatures there, and the parts and pieces are held accountable there. And once the order is completed, you can go back and look at those orders and kind of keep that data up to date. So the problem that it solves is within the industries like oil and gas and industrial supply, there's been a lack of accountability. There's been a lack of accountability in pricing, in shipment tracking and documentation. So we've kind of solved those problems with our advanced algorithm for pricing that speeds up the quoting process. We've also, geographically tracked the drivers, and the paperwork is a huge piece of the accountability process, to where it's fully accountable.
Indeed, indeed. And with AI into the chemistry in our current world, everybody wants to make sure that it's not just the automation, but also augmentation of human capabilities, right? So that
Absolutely.
that helps a lot. So let's talk about where the story actually began. Where did the idea for Gopher came from? What were you doing before Gopher, which led you to believe that, oh, let's try something in this direction, and this might become a big you know business.
So actually, one of our CEO, Warren Vandiver, and my best friend and co-founder, was actually building a house,
Mm.
and him and his dad, and they kept um, running out of materials and having to run back into town and waste time going to get items for themselves. And he just thought, hey, we could make this happen. And we had been talking about a bunch of business ideas, and this one just sounded the best. And he actually uh, pitched it and won some pitch competitions, and then we started putting pen to paper and really getting after it. And this is what we came up with.
Awesome. So why did he share it with you? I know that he's your friend, but one of the biggest challenge in founders space is finding a co-founder. It's not just about um skill set, it is also about the chemistry. We have a saying in our founders world that finding a co-founder is like finding a wife or a husband to get married to, because it's so difficult once you have your co-founder to separate because of all the legalities and the way of how things work when you join the hands, right? What was the reason he asked you to join in this venture with him?
Well, I mean, I would say one of the biggest reasons is just how long we've known each other. We go back to 3 or 4 years old, and then we both joined the Marine Corps,
Mm,
and served our country there. So we have a lot of the same beliefs, and our religious beliefs are along, very, very closely related. So kind of all aspects of it, just we had a good foundation of trust to begin with, right? And we were actually working together in a refinery, and kind of brainstorming business ideas. So I was, when he came up with the idea, I remember the phone call very well. I was actually away with the Marines. I was still in the Marine Reserves at the time.
mm,
And I was hanging out in the little enlisted club, and he gave me that phone call and was like, "I got it, dude." And we kind of called each other and talked to each other about a bunch of ideas, but and so there was a lot of phone calls where it was like, "Hey, I got it," but this one really stuck out because it was such an innovative idea, and we had kind of seen the food delivery industry take off in that direction, and so the idea was kind of based loosely on food delivery and the idea of Uber, right? Where
mm.
gig workers were ready and willing to make these drives for money. We just needed to bridge the gap for retail, right?
Okay. So you said that the initial inspiration was around when your friend was, building his house, but also there was a element of food delivery when you were discussing this idea.
Yes. So we originally built Gopher, and the original idea was to make a marketplace, kind of like Amazon, but for local businesses to have a presence online with their
Mm,
inventories, and so a consumer could shop locally online and get same day delivery.
mm,
And honestly, we actually that was a launch in 2020 that it was kind of a bust because most of the businesses were shut down
mm,
during the launch, and couldn't adopt Gopher fast enough for it to be viable. Workers were at home, businesses were shutting down permanently. And then, just a couple of months after the launch in 2020, our hometown, where we started Gopher in Lake Charles, Louisiana, was hit by two massive hurricanes. And we had 99% destruction. So Gopher, the city had no internet or power for a few weeks, some areas months. And so we were still operating, but what happened was Cummins North America actually reached out and said, "Hey, we need our engine parts moved." And
mm,
it got us scratching our heads a little bit, like, "Hey, that's an idea," So we started, accommodating Cummins and making those deliveries for them. And they started asking for bigger and bigger vehicles. So we started adding goosenecks and trailers and sprinter vans and 18-wheelers to the mix, so
mm.
that and kind of formulating the software to accommodate better. And it just took off. The industrial folks really just dove right in and ate it up.
Indeed, indeed. And I don't know if you remember, like when we were talking on our intro call, when we were discussing this, we looked into the app's name, and we found out that there is a Gopher app, which is in UK, I think, which is different than what you guys were doing.
A little
One
bit
of the
different.
yeah, well, one of the reason I was doing that because we were also facing the same issue. So I have an investment in a business where we have a partnership with Michelin star restaurants in UK, especially in London, right? And they do not deliver it through normal delivery platforms like Deliveroo or Uber Eats, things like that. I don't know if you have it in US alone, but we have like Uber Eats, which is like a delivery platform for food. We also have Deliveroo. I'm not sure if it is an American company or not because never seen it in US when I was there. It's called Deliveroo. It has a
Think so.
yeah. So they don't use it. So what we do is we kind of like hire third-party delivery providers to deliver, but it's super expensive, even in Central London. Central London is quite small, less than a 10 kilometers of a radius. But if you're hiring spatial delivery um, executives to deliver this Michelin star restaurant food, which is basically the minimum order for them is around £100. That is a £20, cut into your revenue. And obviously, people who are ordering from these Michelin star restaurants are pretty wealthy and they're happy to pay like 10 or 15 pounds of delivery, the model doesn't work when it comes to making profit. And that's why I was looking into it, and I was like, okay, I can speak with David, and potentially we could figure out something together. But then disappointing that you guys are only in US right now. But hey, who knows, when you're here I can connect you with the founders. So
Absolutely.
that is a industry wide issue, to be fair, and a lot of people face that. So before moving forward, then, David, when you had this epiphany, did you look in the market? Were there other services? What was going on at that time? And what did you see from your research that encouraged you to move ahead with this idea with your co-founder?
So I would say there weren't any, at least in our region, right? Any delivery services. I mean, you had Roadie, and there was a company called Curry, but they weren't dealing with the industrial aspect of things. So we saw the need for larger items to be moved and the connectivity of the industrial network, which is a very closed off group. I mean, you have to really be in the network to get that work, and to obtain that trust that those consumers, those customers need, right?
Mm,
So the competition, as we said, the competition is healthy, right? We also saw Uber, right? Uber Freight was coming out at about that time, in a little bit before 2020, while we were building the software, and we weren't super worried. There was also a product that Uber came out with called Connect, and it was kind of like small package delivery, utilizing the Uber drivers, and I don't think that really caught on, because it was mostly, like I said, retail stuff and not really in the industrial realm. But what we've done to combat it is, some ongoing market research, finding out where there's flaws in those other companies and how we can mitigate and rise above to dominate those areas, and in the end actually be immune, to that competition.
mm,
So yeah, I mean, I think the biggest piece was the ongoing market research, especially as we came to the pivot in 2020 into industrial, was really the competition is just behaviors. It's not other companies. We're competing against these ancient behaviors of phone calls and emails and waiting long periods of time for quotes, and not having tracking. These people are putting orders in. The old way was, okay, let me find out where it is. And you call a dispatch, and the dispatch calls a driver, and the driver maybe gets back to the dispatch, and then the dispatch calls the shipper again. And, you know, maybe an hour goes by, and now no one knows where the driver is still. Right.
mm.
So that's been our answer to the competition the most, is just being better than.
Yeah, yeah. And you also mentioned there's a lot of paperwork involved into this whole uh, supply chain management and delivery processes, right? Which kind of we understand, because then just operating among 10 Michelin star restaurant in London, you would think that, oh, how much paperwork we would need, even if you're delivering like, I don't know, 100 orders every day. Imagine a company like yourself delivering thousands of deliveries every hour, not a day. How much paperwork it requires. How did you manage to solve that problem? Because I'm guessing in order to manage this paperwork, you need to integrate yourself into so many different systems for if you have B2B customers, right? How did you solve that?
So the biggest problem we saw with paperwork was when an order goes out, the customers would ask, "Hey, can the driver come back by the shop to drop off the paperwork?" And if you think logistically about it, okay, we send a driver to Houston, and that driver may grab other items and go here or there. To make a return trip would be disastrous to the logistics of everything, right? And now, do we pay the driver to come all the way back? Does the customer pay to get that paperwork returned? So the easiest solution was, okay, let's let the driver upload the paperwork that's
Mm,
signed, and now it's in the system. Everybody gets a PDF copy of it. It's foolproof, right? So It can't get lost. It can't get wet. Everything's safe with it. So both the driver and the shipper, as well as our dispatch, our automated system, keeps digital paperwork. You can upload your own paperwork, or the Gopher app actually builds out a digital bill of lading. When a shipper puts an order request in and accepts the price and presses go, the paperwork gets signed with his digital signature, his or her digital signature. Then when a carrier or a driver accepts an order, it gets signed with their digital signature. And then upon drop off, the driver gets the cell phone, uses their cell phone to get it signed. And that goes on the digital bill of lading as well. And so kind of the industry standard form. And so everything's accountable, which with the paperwork, most of our clients won't get paid by their customers until that paperwork is filed. So
Mm.
having that readily accessible speeds up their process, because they can go, as soon as that delivery is completed, they can send that paperwork off to get paid. And the driver gets paid instantly as well.
Interesting. And on your system, then all these things happens with some kind of automation in place, or this is more manual process. I mean, obviously you have a software in place in the middle, but then manually users have to like click buttons or initiate some processes. How does that all work?
Yeah. So when a customer needs something delivered, they would hop in our dashboard or on their computer or in the mobile app on their phone
Mm,
and simply put a to and from address and what the item is. And they can even take a picture of the item, and our AI in our software will
mm,
recognize it and figure the dimensions and find out what vehicle it needs. Or they can manually type in the item and the dimensions themselves.
mm,
And from there, it's look at the price. Do I like it? Yes. Click go. Do I not like it? You know, find another solution, right? Within the app, there's other options, right? Okay, maybe I can break this into 2 orders. Maybe this smaller vehicle will still fit this item for a lower price.
mm,
And so it's really minimal, because the process before, these deliveries were happening through email or phone call, where they would have to call and hope to get someone on the phone and then tell them all the information that they're typing into the Gopher app anyway. But the Gopher
mm,
app is built to take in all the information that's needed. So there's no need for a follow-on call. There's no need for numerous emails to get a quote. And then the
mm,
quote is generated by the algorithm. So it speeds up the process of quoting, where it's pretty common to have to wait 24 hours to get a number back, for a particular movement, right? A particular shipment. And so speeding that up has drastically changed the industry as well.
indeed, indeed. And talk to me more about, so can you give us a sense of like how many delivery providers you have, and how many in-house vehicles you have in the business? Because I think from a scaling perspective, let's say if you have 100 vans in one city, that is quite a lot of ops cost, right? It's a big OPEX cost for the business. How do you deal with this kind of OPEX costs in terms of, so you mentioned that you wanted to create a marketplace, but it seems like it is a marketplace for people who could deliver and then people who want to get things delivered.
Yes.
So give us the numbers.
So quite easily, a little more easy than we thought, the
Mm,
drivers are jumping in every
mm,
day. There's new signups. We're within our network. We're at about 600 plus thousand drivers across the United States.
wow.
So and that ranges from cars, SUVs, pickup trucks, sprinter vans, goosenecks, box trucks, car haulers, 18-wheelers, reefers, van trailers, everything.
Mm,
So the network of drivers hasn't been very difficult, especially since we're doing, owner operators only. So our model very closely mimics the gig economy, right? With
mm,
Gopher, kind of looks like Uber in that aspect, where it's just owner operators. They drive when they want to. We don't own them. They're not our employees. They're not, their assets are their own. We don't own any assets. So it really has mitigated the cost. And that was a big point that we met on it frequently. Like, okay, should we hire directly? Should we directly hire this many drivers in each city to launch that city? Or do we just hire these contractors as, you know, in the way that they are now, and just hope that we get enough? Well, we haven't missed an order. So
Mm.
it's it's worked out to that point, and it's very cost effective. So we don't pay a driver unless they make a delivery. And with that being the case, we're able to pay them better than if they were, hourly employees.
Mm. Interesting. Very interesting. So let's talk more about the numbers then. Can you give us a sense of the size of the business? Where are you in terms of revenue, number of customers, size of team, etc.?
Absolutely. So we have, you heard how many drivers, right? We're looking at 600,000 plus right now.
600,000. Yeah.
With our corporate staff, we have 5 employees. So there's 5 persons running the show. We've got 2 engineers. We've got myself as the chief revenue officer. We have Warren Vandiver as the chief executive officer, and we have Matt Saraday as the chief operations officer. And then our 2 engineers is Jared Beekman and Harry Wang. They're running the show software wise, and we actually originally had 37 employees building out the software, building out the processes and procedures, running through, dispatching problems, anything that could possibly come our way. We had a person working on it. We had it rocking and rolling, and really, and we kind of set that up so that we could, hire professionals and do it right the first time. So we didn't have to do a whole bunch of, software changes and, kind of stepping backwards, right? We only wanted to move forward. So with that, and once it was built and automated more, we've gotten down to the 5 personnel, right? So with the numbers, our revenue is moving in a good direction. We're about 40% growth month over month, and we're about 800,000 on the revenue side, which our goal is to get to 2 million ARR, uh, annual recurring revenue, in the next year and a half.
Mm.
So, and with that, it sounds crazy, but we haven't marketed this yet.
Mm.
We just started our first marketing, outside of, me making a post or Warren making a post or, sharing a link, on LinkedIn or something, with a real marketing agency pushing that campaign. We expect to see some very large growth and actually some brand awareness out there. But we've done about 9,000 deliveries across the United States, Mexico, and Canada so far, just on what we really call a pilot,
Mm.
because we hadn't launched it per se with a marketing campaign.
Yeah. Yeah. And those numbers are very, n- good in terms of VC sees for raising money, because usually investors are looking for startups who are in a growing stage and early in their journey and have a lot of traction. And how much you have raised till now? Like, are you looking for raising more, or what's the situation?
Yeah, so we've raised almost 2 million. And we're actually in a raise right now. We want to raise another 2 million. And with that, we think that'll probably carry us through, um, you know, potentially profitability.
Mm.
So, it's really just to pour into the marketing point.
That is that is really cool, and I'm sure, David, after listening to these podcasts and many other social media content you're producing right now, you will get quite a lot of interest, because it's from the prima facie look of the numbers, it looks like your startup is quite good when it comes to investors' perspective, because you're growing, you have traction, you have natural growth coming from the natural resources without any advertisement, which is, I think, the best place to be for an investor, right? Great. As you know, we are all limited with the time, and we also have to cover another section on our show, which is the quickfire. round. I wanted to ask you another question before we move to that round, which is it's a personal question. And it's because it is a founders podcast show. Throughout your journey and experience, there must have been valuable lessons learned, right? If you don't mind sharing, could you reflect on your experience um, and tell us about one mistake or a setback that you have encountered along the way that you now consider a regret or a lessons learned? And additionally, what advice would you give our listeners based on this experience?
So I would say you can do a whole lot more with a lot less than you think.
Mm,
I think that's the best deal right there. So there's been times where we've, had different investors come along and, you know, different different things where, it was too good to be true and we let it get to us really hard, right? Um the best thing that we noticed works is keep your head down, explore every investor opportunity, but never be desperate, right?
mm,
We're always desperate as entrepreneurs, right? We always need, help. We need capital, right? But not as much as you think. You can go a long way with just grinding, just keeping your head down and grinding. I
mm.
think that's the biggest lesson we've learned is to not get discouraged.
Indeed, indeed. Thanks for sharing that. Well, David, let's move to our liking round then. I've got six quick fire questions. At any point you think that you don't want to answer the question, give me a skip and then we move to the next one. Is that okay? Great. What are the top three pain points in freight industry in 2025?
The three pain points. I would say for this industry, it's behaviors.
Mm,
So people are stuck in their ways. People want to use who they've been using for delivery, um, and change is scary for them, right? Um, I would say the next big deal is interest rates are high right now. There's a lot of panic in politics and things like that. So
mm.
investor dollars aren't flowing as well as they were in 2019. So it's been interesting with that. And I'd say the third thing is, man, I don't know. It's hard to think of a third problem right off the top of my head right now. But the
That's all
first
right.
two really seem when you dive into them, they're more like 10 problems each.
Mm. Yeah, they're quite a big chunk of they're covering quite a big chunk of horizontal space in the pain vertical, right? Great. What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
Oh, wow. I would say, hmm, there's too many to choose from. I think let's see, golly, this is a hard question.
It's
There's
all
too
right.
many.
Let's
I
move
don't
to
have a
the.
favorite one. Um, books like the E-Myth, is good,
Mhm.
where, just talks a lot about business and software. I think,
Yeah,
I mean, that
E-Myth is already in my reading lists on my Kindle, so yeah, I would definitely recommend that book.
yes.
Um, After Profit First, I guess, for founders. So yeah.
Yeah.
What's one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
One attribute of a successful founder. I think, it's grit.
Mm,
Being able to not just solve the problems, but find the problems, right? That's where the grit comes in is mitigating problems before others find them. The
indeed.
sooner you get it, the less obvious they are, right?
Yeah.
And if they're not obvious, that means they're not big problems yet.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
My favorite is music. I like to play and sing, play almost any instrument I can get my hands on, and I like to sing, and it really grounds me.
That's really cool. I've heard it somewhere. I think I've read it somewhere. Don't remember the book name right now. That musicians make really good entrepreneurs because they know how to create rhythms in their environment. So there you go. Found one. What's a new or a crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had time?
Oh, wow. So I think one of the biggest ones that I've thought of over the years is intuitive shopping,
Mm,
where you know, and companies have done things like this, but people have a hard time budgeting for groceries, for activities, and they have a hard time. We've all run out of toothpaste or toilet paper at some point, right? And it's 2025. Why is that happening?
Yeah,
How can that be
exactly.
mitigated, and not just mitigated, but forgotten? A forgotten problem. You know, uh, it would just it could make life a lot easier. Now it's a big tackle, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. And what's an interesting or a fun fact about you that most people don't know?
man. Um, I'm a potter. I uh I was one class away from getting a pottery minor actually. And
Really?
so
Oh, that's
yeah,
nice. That's really cool.
it's random.
Yeah, but it is really cool. I always thought to do that, but never had an opportunity. So maybe that will trigger the initiation of the new skill set I must learn. Great, David. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story, unpacking last few years of building this business with your co-founder, and sharing some ups and downs. If people want to check it out or get in touch with you if they have any question, what's the best way to do it?
You can find me on the website, LinkedIn, Facebook, and yeah, so all those avenues were available. Love to hear from you. We're ready to help your business, and even if you have just questions about business in general, we're ready to
Mm,
help.
great. And uh, your website is Gopher, GOPHRAPP.com, as it shows under your name, isn't it? So that's the
That's
one.
correct.
And just search David Soileau on LinkedIn, and you should be able to connect with David and ask questions. But David, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing in the freight industry. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.